Squirrel Friends, the official RuPaul's Drag Race podcast, is taking you behind the scenes of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 15 on MTV with me, Lonnie Love, and my co-host, Alec Mapa.
We'll recap the latest episode, and we'll even be joined by some of your favorite queens along the way.
Watch Season 15 of RuPaul's Drag Race every Friday on MTV. Then join us on the podcast right after the show to recap the episode and more.
Listen to Squirrel Friends, the official RuPaul's Drag Race podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Back in 1999, a young woman from South Carolina vanished. 7 years passed. She was presumed dead. Then, a tip came in.
He said, I think I found your girl, and she's alive. She's in New York. And I said, really?
The detective on the case, he didn't buy it. He came to believe that he was dealing with an imposter. Who was this woman, really? Listen to Deep Cover on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You're listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Greetings one, greetings all. Welcome to yet another episode where we talk about independent music and people that care about it, people that create it, people that play it, document it, all of those things in the name of punk, hardcore, metal, indie, emo, whatever it is. That is what we cover here. Thank you for downloading and listening to this podcast. And trust me, I know a lot of people just like throw those platitudes out there, but I genuinely do appreciate it because I don't know. I'm feeling very appreciative because I do see more and more people interacting with the podcast, and I've got some fun info to share with you in a bit in regards to some live podcasts, but I'm feeling a lot of love, and I genuinely do appreciate you spending time with the show week after week. And this week, of course, is no exception to the rule. I don't have any sleeper guests on here. I mean, I've done like 10 years worth of episodes. You think I would have had one? There's probably one. There's one. I can point to one, but I'm not going to out that person. It was just, not that engaging of a chat, but that's neither here nor there. I am talking to Devin Swank from Sanguisugabogg. Sanguisugabogg, which, of course, for those of you that are just like completely dying hearing me mispronounce the band's name, that's their vibe. That's what they got going on. But they just released a new record on Century Media that is astonishingly good. I love this band. I love what they do. It's a great combination of, metal, hardcore, death metal. Like, they just have so many cool influences. And I've never seen them, but I'm very, very, very excited to see them at some point in the near future. And they're road dogs. And you just need to absolutely encounter the band in order to really drink in all that they have going on. And I was excited to have Devin on the show because I've been a fan of the band and got presented the opportunity. So that is why we are discussing what they have going on and just who Devin is as a human being, because he's an interesting dude. So was very, very pleased to have that chat. But some exciting things going on in this side of the microphone. First off, I am doing my first ever live podcast here in the United States of America. For those of you keeping score, I did some live podcasts at a music festival last year in the UK called Outbreak Fest, and it was so much fun. So I was personally looking for a cool fest here in the States that it makes a lot of sense to do. And I mean, while I could very much look in the backyard of where I live in regards to the Sound and Fury Festival, helped put it on for a couple of years, I was like, you know what? I wanted to, kind of export it because I really like a lot of other scenes across the country. Anyways, very excited to be doing live podcasts at the LDB Fest. And for those of you that are not in the know, you can go to ldbfestival.com, find a place where you can purchase some tickets. But they actually sold out once before, but we're able to release a handful of tickets, which if you act quickly, like literally when this podcast is published, you might be able to find a few tickets. But I'm doing live podcasts there. They were able to figure out a sort of little stage scenario, and I'll be having some chats with people that are playing the fest, whether it's Terror or Knocked Loose or Koyo. Like, there's so many good bands, and I've watched this festival from afar, never been able to attend it. It's in Louisville, Kentucky, or Louisville. As the people who live in the city, I'm always going to call it by its wrong name because I do not live in the city. So I'm going to call it Louisville. And that's just the way that it's going to be. But anyways, very excited, and huge shout out to Colin, Alex, Julia, and Ryan who put on the festival for inviting me. It was just, I'm thrilled to do it. So that's March 17th and 18th in Louisville, Kentucky. And I am so excited to go there. So pay attention to the social media platforms and you'll get an announcement as far as who I'm going to be interviewing and what I'll be doing at the festival. I mean, obviously I'll be interviewing them, but you get the point. Anyways, you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. Leave a rating and or review on Apple Podcasts. It costs $0 and it takes you maybe 30 seconds. I would very much appreciate it. And you can also leave a rating on Spotify. That takes you like 5 seconds. I mean, I'm just saving you time at this point. But it helps out the show tremendously. And I appreciate it. I just appreciate all the things that you bestow upon this podcast and me personally. I feel humbled, and I know that this sounds really stupid, but anyways, let's talk to Devin. Like I said, Sanguisugabogg. Anyways, I'm completely butchering the band's name as I tried ever so valiantly at the top of the show. But like I said, they just released a new record on Century Media Records in early February. So like probably about a week and a half or so ago. It crushes. It's just really, really good. And I highly encourage you check it out. So let's get to know Devin a little bit because I had never spoken to him before. And we get to know each other over this podcast and we get to know why he is who he is as a human. Sometimes I say these things that are very grandiose and I'm like, will we ever really know people as a human? But anyways, here's Devin and let's listen to a little of Sanguisugabogg as we head into the interview. And I want to say that Decibel was the first place that I really was aware of the band. I mean, I had seen the name kind of, appear on flyers and social media and stuff like that. And admittedly, as a person who got into independent music via punk and hardcore, death metal is selective for me. There are certain bands where I'm just like, love them. And other bands I'm like, yo, this is silly and over the top. And I put you in that camp initially. Where I was like, what the hell's up with this band? But then once I saw the work that you put in and the fact that there was, a clear intention to why you were presenting yourself as such. And then obviously once you started to, work with Century Media and put out a decent amount of music. And I was like, oh, these guys are, not just a quote unquote joke brand, not like you were completely in that camp for me, but I'm sure a lot of what you have experienced within the band has been some mixture of that, where people are like, should I take this seriously? Should I not take this seriously? Like, where does this sit? How does that kind of sit with you as I describe that journey for myself? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has felt some shade of that.
For sure. Yeah. We don't take any offense to it at all. We do let our personalities shine, and all of us in the band are very, tongue in cheek, joking, type of people. We all try to like out funny each other and try to get someone to laugh in the band, so much to where their belly hurts. But
sure.
As far as like music and, being professional and touring, it's all business, from, sound check, loading in, to tearing down. We're so quick at it now. It's been, like second nature to us. And, we do take our music, definitely to a serious level, as far as like lyrical structure. It's nothing like I really actually indulge in, it's not like fanaticisms or anything like that. So, it's definitely comes from a place of just being, bizarre and taking inspiration from like a lot of other bands prior to us and like horror films and things such as that. But I think ideally we're just more ignorant than I would say that we're funny. We don't. There's some parts and aspects that we don't take too seriously, because if we did take it too seriously, then it would also hurt our feelings, like when we get negative feedback or anything like that too, or if things weren't to go right by any means, then it could be detrimental to some, people like us. But for us, it's all just about having fun. I wouldn't say necessarily we're a joke band or anything like that. We're not like Guar, where we're spraying blood on people and decapitating Hillary Clinton, or
Right.
Doing using props or anything like that. But
Right.
as far as like the way we like to come across, we like to come across as people that you could always chill on your sectional with and hang out and have a few laughs with. We don't want the persona of being some kind of like uptight metal elitist or snob or anything like that.
Right. And honestly, I completely follow along with your trail of logic. And I do think that is why people have paid attention to you so quickly, because there is this element, metal in and of itself is sometimes a very silly genre, even though the bands take it, dead seriously with their presentation of whether it's, obviously dressing up in corpse paint or, bullet belts or Vikings or whatever element of it. But just the fact that you guys are like, we wear real clothes. We talk about weed a lot. And we also like to be funny. Like it's, I think that's, to your point, it does let you guys shine as human beings and know like, oh yeah, like we are who we are, and it's contained within this, music, which is cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't look good in leather. I don't like wearing leather or anything like that anyway. So
right. You're like, we tried at the very beginning, but I just couldn't fit it. So we tried a different angle,
Yeah. Then I realized I was wearing a dead cow and was like, let's find something else here.
Right. And I do think that there also is the element, like it was funny. I had a friend who I like to call a civilian, which is a person that you can almost imagine like doesn't really have context for our, punk hardcore metal scenes or whatever. And I showed him your band, and he definitely was just like, first off, like every person is like, how the hell do you say this band? But, oh, they're good. And I was like, I knew he would like this. And I think it is that element of you open the door with the music and obviously the presentation of it, but then there is that more people feel more attached to you because again, you are real humans that are playing this and not just like some artifice.
Yeah, absolutely. We get you in, and with the music, and as far as like the aesthetic, there's really no play on the aesthetic. It's more so just us. We're small town folk who just like to have a few laughs, and we're regular people. I'm the type, outside of playing death metal, I've coached like youth football and stuff too. So we're very, very average Joe, type of lifestyle with all of us. Even one of our guitar players, he's a family man. My girlfriend has a degree in liberal arts, so I couldn't be big, tough, scary, killing women, death metal guy, even if my heart desired to be. So,
right. Yeah. You're like, this is a character if I do this, and this is no way, shape or form attached to me. So yeah, I appreciate that. We'll dive more into that a little bit later, but I want to focus on you as a person. Were you actually born and raised in Columbus, or where did you come up?
So I was born in Reynoldsburg, Ohio, which is it's just east of Columbus. It might as well just be Columbus, about 20 minutes outside of the city. Very small town. I grew up there. I played football there, was, really heavily into sports. I was very close with my family and stuff too. My parents stuck together as long as they could. They didn't separate until I was like 17. Spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So they were the two people that reared me, and brought me up and taught me how to be a good person, and they didn't listen to metal at all. But my dad, my love for the kind of music I like, definitely came from my dad. My dad would listen to like Black Flag and Sepultura, Obituary, some early like Morbid Angel and stuff too. And, I kind of latched onto that like at a very, very early age. I remember being a kid and I would hear like a Chevy truck commercial, and it would have like a distorted guitar, like little break. And I would just be like, man, it'd be cool if like one of the growly dudes like sang on that, with along the commercial. And, I was like 12 or 13. We had these two kids that lived down the street from me, and they did, they were in a Christ Corps band.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And, they didn't have like a vocalist or anything at the time. So I decided to wing at it, and, I sucked. I was horrible. So they clearly didn't go with me, but that was like my first exposure to trying to see if I can do vocals or anything like that. And, I didn't really get too much into that until I was like 16 or 17 is when I started going to shows, met people my age that played instruments, had similar interests. And I was always trying to start like a grindcore or death metal band. And, things didn't really take much notice until I got into this band, it'll be 4 years. We've been a band here in a couple months.
That's incredible. Kind of going back in regards to, do you have brothers and sisters? You an only child?
I have a little sister.
Okay.
Yep. And she's cool. She's got two kids, and, one's Eli and one's Parker, and I'm really close with them. I spoil the hell out of them anytime I see them. And her oldest, Eli, I remember babysitting him, and I was listening to Autopsy, and I gave him his bottle, and the kid was body banging. Like he was like rocking back and forth to the beat, and I was like, oh, he's getting it. Like we got a future rocker on our hands. Look at this kid. And yeah, every time he sees me, he calls me. It's funny. He can't get a lot of words right, but he calls me Dunkle. And
that's beautiful.
Right.
Right.
I love it. So anytime he sees me, he's like, "What's up, Dunkle?" Like that, and he gives me the horns and stuff. He's only 3 years old, so he's still.
Dude, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love like kids attaching themselves, especially like the role that you were playing, where it's just like, it's so sick to be able to be like the cool uncle and just, be, I mean, sure, obviously as he gets older, you can, take him miniature golfing and, take him to his first show or whatever. But just, I love that idea. Like he's probably going to call you Dunkle for the rest of his life, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd hope so. I'd be kind of bummed if he called me anything else. And that's the thing too, is like, playing a lot of DIY shows. We've been lucky to play a lot of like all age shows, like shows, the kind of shows that I was going to as a kid. And we, on the Terror tour that we did last year, Cody brought his little brother, who's only 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And he stood behind the drum kit while we were playing. And he was like, "Devin, you guys had 31 stage divers your whole set." And I was like, "You counted?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That's so cool, dude."
I love
I was
that.
like, "Why didn't you jump out there? We'd have tossed you like a beach ball. It would have been cool."
That's so cool. I love the kid logic of like, I'm going to count every stage dive. That's so cool. And so with most people that have toured or, visited Columbus, like it's not exactly the, hub of activity in regards to, cultural touch points. It's like, oh yeah, kind of a typical Midwest town and stuff like that. What was your experience, I guess, growing up in Columbus and the surrounding area? I know you said, obviously, you have a close relationship with your parents and grandparents and that sort of idyllic, household as far as you being raised. But were you, and like you said, you were into sports. I imagine that was kind of what you were pouring yourself into in elementary school and junior high?
Yeah, absolutely. Football was my first love, and then I got into wrestling in the 5th grade and ended up doing a little bit of collegiate wrestling. I was really good at it. That was like my first thing I ever really got into. And, my parents and my family around me like really rode that into me, hey, you got a chance to make something of this. So I devoted everything I had into it. I made sure I made good enough grades to play sports every year. And, I really applied myself to that. And it's cool because like, I feel that way now because, I don't like to half-ass anything. If our band needs anything done, I try to blow expectations and put all of me into something that I'm doing, because in return I could get what I want and more. And that's, very sick, man. I used to strive for my parents, not just their approval, but like their pride and their acceptance. Like I wanted them to be stoked that I was doing something. And it's cool because like I've never seen my dad's tougher than nails, man. He's a concrete dude. Like he shows no emotion, and we played a hometown show back in November before we headed out to Europe. Mm-hmm. And the show sold out like 5 minutes after door. It was asses to elbows packed. Mm-hmm. And my dad watched us, and he was about to leave, and it's one of the first times ever, man. Like he tears in his eyes. He told me he's proud of me. So,
oh, dude, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I was like, man. I even told him, I was like, Dad, I was like, my friends are here. I was like, I'm not trying to look soft right now. I was like, you need to wipe your eyes, dude. People are gonna think we broke up or something, like, yeah, get it together, old man. But that was definitely a big. I like to think of it as like a real recognized real moment, dude. Because I idolize my dad. He's a hardworking man. Did everything he could to keep food on the table. Loyal man, and stuck in the same field that he's been in since he was 17 years old, and made a lot of them for himself for being, a high school dropout. And he taught me right from wrong. I didn't even know he dropped out of high school until after I was done with college, because he didn't want me to ever think that was okay.
Right. That was like an option for you. Yeah,
exactly. So and
that's
really also my football coach for like the longest time too. So, I always wanted
so
him
cool.
to be proud of me.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's really cool, that especially too when you have those like full circle moments to where whatever it is you're participating in, whether it's sports, band, art, whatever, the moment that you have your parent recognize that you're doing something that you're passionate about and you reach some level of success or whatever, it's like, that's it. You're just like, all right, cool. We can quit now. We're good.
Yeah. I told my pops, I'm going to try to be the second most famous Swank.
Let's talk about our friends at rockabilia.com. They are amazing partners of this show, and I want to give you a discount, 10% off your entire order by using the promo code 100 words or less. They have so much stuff in regards to band merch. They actually started stocking vinyl. Like, I tripped across. This is so exciting. The first AFI 7-inch called Dork. There is some limited edition repressings that they've started to do, and Rockabilia has an exclusive glow-in-the-dark color, deep cut, AFI, Dork 7-inch. Holy moly, I didn't even know that it existed, but that's the sort of stuff that you can get into when you go to rockabilia.com. It's all officially licensed merch. That means bands get paid. and you will be able to get high quality band merchandise shipped to you wherever you live. It's easy. It's a win-win-win scenario as long as you use this promo code 100 words or less. It gets you all the merch you need for yourself, for your friends, your family. I don't care what style of music you're into. You want a limited edition Typo Negative shirt? Sure, they got that for you. Or how about a Cradle of Filth limited edition Valentine's Day set? They got it all. So go to rockabilia.com, promo code 100 words or less, and enjoy shopping. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. I myself am a huge advocate for therapy, and I think that most people would benefit from it because, life just really gets in the way sometime. Whether it's a relationship issue, a family issue, a work issue, you feel overwhelmed. You don't know where to turn to. You're like, I can't bug my family and friends about this. Like maybe I'll be able to, just push through it on my own. You do not need to be alone in this journey. And that is why BetterHelp is such a cool option. They are convenient because it's flexible, affordable, and entirely online. And all you do is fill out a brief questionnaire and you get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. I love what they do, and I would really, really encourage you trying therapy for the first time. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can absolutely help get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/Ray to get 10% off your first month. That is betterhelp.com/Ray. Try therapy, and trust me, it will make your life better. I do like, honestly, I haven't heard people describe the work ethic scenario in relation to, sports, and then looking at how they can develop that at a younger age and then be able to apply it to things that, are obviously are not sports, especially with what you're talking about, like football and wrestling. Clearly, those are both physical sports. And there is that element, especially when you're talking about punk, hardcore metal, where it's like, oh, dude, don't be a jock. Like, like there's a real dividing line. I know it's less now than it used to be. But as you started to get into subculture and stuff like that, did you feel like you had to not turn your back on sports, but, kind of make that less of a priority?
Yeah. I learned real quick how different I was from a lot of other people. And, I always listened to metal, and, just being small town folk, like it was, my friends growing up were really roughneck, and we kept in the same, clique, same friend group for so long. I'm still friends with a dude I've been friends with since I was 7 years old. And, like outside of that, I found out like a lot of people were nerdy, and then you meet like trust fund kids and stuff too. And because, they go to art school, they discover music, and they're going to DIY shows because it's hip or edgy. And it's like, and everyone's just from a different world, man. Like I grew up poor and didn't really have much. Like sports was like the only outlet that I could see any potential in my life. And, when I found music and discovered shows, I fell just in love with that as I did any kind of sports. And, and later on in life, I've lived in punk houses and stuff like that. And I try to talk to friends, and I'll be like, I'll never forget. I'm watching the Minnesota Vikings like on the TV at this punk house that I lived in. And my roommates like stormed in and they were like, there's no way you're watching football right now. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, that's pretty Republican of you. And I was like, no, it's not. And I was like, I'll watch it. I've watched it since I was a kid.
Right.
They're like, oh, I hate that. Same with the first 6-week tour that we did. We went to Minneapolis on one of the dates, and I was like, hey, I know you guys probably don't care. I was like, you could drop me off or I can Uber, but I really want to go to US Bank Arena and see the dome and stuff, because I'm a big Minnesota Vikings fan. And they were like, yeah. And I'm so stoked, and I'm taking pictures. I'm calling my dad, like, right. This. And everyone else is just looking like, dude, it's cold. I'm not having really as much fun as you. And I was just like, yeah, I guess you're not. I'm the only one in the band that still watches sports, still gets pretty dedicated. Being being from Ohio in general, like it's that's what pretty like reigns supreme here is collegiate sports and football and even hockey. Like we don't even have a franchise team, but people are so like diehard into it. If you bring up the Columbus Blue Jackets at any bar, club or anything in Columbus, like you'll have like people mob you and like ready to talk your ear off about them.
Right. Yeah. That is a very quintessential Midwest thing to, attach yourself to sports or whatever. But I like the idea. And you joked around previously in regards to, Christian metalcore, Christcore, whatever you want to call it. Like that is also very Midwestern as well. So like, it's amazing that was your, that was your first experience where it's like, all right, well, yeah, sure. I'll try to sing for this Christian hardcore band.
Yeah. I mean, it was just at the time, like I didn't have wheels and it was like just down the street. So, and what's funny is like, they weren't Christian, but they played those kind of shows and stuff because, we were all like 13 and 14. It was, you're not going to play some kind of bar or venue at that age. So you're lucky to play really anywhere outside of your, practice spot. So,
right.
And, it wasn't a scene I got into, I got, pretty young, at like 13, I started going to hardcore shows. I saw that I've seen Ringworm, Pit Boss, even Cold as Life and stuff
amazing.
Like that from like 13 to 15. And then, once I was able to drive, I was able to go to like Cleveland and Cincinnati and see a lot of death metal shows. I saw a cool like death metal show in Columbus. I remember it was called Scion Fest. So I got to see like Immolation and Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse.
Oh yeah. That's when Scion was doing all those free shows and you were just like, wait, this feels like a scam. Like these bands are getting paid a ridiculous amount of money and I'm showing up at the show for free. Like, what is this?
Right. Yeah. That didn't make sense at all. And they hosted it at like, it was 2 different venues too, because they also stacked locals too. Mm-hmm. And, they were just trying to squeeze every bit out of people that they could at that show, and got to see some pretty cool local bands, and some people in those bands, like they went on to do like bigger things too. Like we had this crazy, like kind of, they were deathcore, but they were leaning towards more of the death metal side. They were called 1931. And they had Devin Swank, who ended up joining Oceano and later on like the Acacia Strain.
Yep.
And I think, John Rice from Job for a Cowboy and the Red Chord, he played drums for him for a minute too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that actually transitions nicely into a topic I was going to talk to you about in regards to, as you start to get introduced to independent music, people feel like you have to attach yourself so specifically to one style of music. Again, that's becoming less prevalent where, kids of a mixtape generation can be like, oh yes, I like Drake and Morbid Angel or whatever. But like for you personally, it seems like you were always dabbling with like anything heavy, whether it was, like you said, Ringworm and Cold as Life, and then, Obituary or Cannibal Corpse or whatever. So did you feel any sort of, I guess, pull from one or the other, where it's like, oh, I got to be a hardcore kid or I got to be a metal kid, or did you just like not care because you were going to all the shows?
A little bit of both, man. Later on in high school, I ended up getting really into a lot of like crust punk, bands like Tragedy, His Hero Is Gone.
Oh yeah.
And then, those were bands that were just hijacking like my brain for like the longest time, man. And I just like really embraced like what they were singing about, like inner struggles and being broke, growing up poor and not having anything and just saying fuck it all, fuck everybody. And then for a while I remember brutal death metal just absolutely taking its hold on me, and it was just like, if I don't hear the drums going, I don't want to hear it. And I was kind of a snob just because I was such a nerd about the music. So when people would be like, "Oh, do you like that band? Do you like this band?" I'd be like, "Nah, that band's weak." But I think as I get older and I have like a nostalgia, like let's throw this on for a throwback, or let's listen to this. I think as I got more into playing music and doing like the inner workings of being in a band, and also being involved in like the DIY scene and the ins and outs of like listening to everybody's band and doing merch and traveling and all that stuff, I've grown more of a love for all kinds of music, and especially when we're on the road, like it's kind of easy to get burnt out on just death metal. So,
Right.
yeah, smooth sailing drives to like some post rock stuff, or things such as that, or even old school hip hop. That's usually like our go-to, when we're in the van, because it's like, man, I've listened to the same death metal bands for like 3 weeks now. I gotta listen to like Project Pat or something. Like we got to get something on now, fast.
Right. Oh yeah. You gotta decompress. That's definitely, it's definitely rough if you're just, and especially too, because clearly every venue you play across the entire world usually plays the style of music that is being played that evening. So it's like in between bands, like, all right, here's more aggressive music. All right, great. Can we be quiet? Maybe.
Yeah. That's why, whenever we headline, we get to pick the playlist that, the sound guy gets to play over the speakers. And we have all kinds of stuff, like a lot of trip hop and some hardcore punk, some just straight up metal and traditional metal, like some shred guitar stuff that you're not going to hear out of us, but just stuff that we like to kind of ease the brutal assault that you're getting to your ears every night.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was the, you as a kid, I mean, it sounds like you were, participating in, sports, and did you care, I guess 2 questions. Did you care necessarily about school, and was there kind of a life path that was unfolding for you as far as, hey, maybe do this as a job or a career and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I always wanted to be involved with music as far as like a career standpoint. I even ended up going to like a vocational school, as well as my homeschool in high school for 2 years, because I was thinking like, hey, if I could pick up some tips and a trade, and if I don't make it as like a touring band or anything, I could be a roadie,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can learn something on the electric side, or like for a minute, I was interested in being like a personal bodyguard, or like VIP protection and things like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, there's a ton of, especially within, punk and hardcore, like there's been a ton of people that have, graduated up to that, where it's just like, oh yeah, I watch out for Justin Bieber or whatever. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. And, as far as school, I was so, growing up, I was so attention deficit ridden. It was really hard for me to like focus, because I'm being taught the same thing every day. It would be so easy for me to just daydream all the time. I did my work and I got by. I flew under the radar. Where I impressed anybody like in school was with sports, and that was my thing. Like I tried, but even trying, like I would say that I was doing, just a couple steps above the bare minimum, and make passing grades. I didn't have anything that looked bad at all, but I took school as more of like, this is what I need to do to get by for now. And then in lunch and some classes, it was more of like a social thing, because I had like my Rat Pack with me all through high school. There was the same like 10 people that sat at the table every day. They were waiting for me. And
That's awesome.
yeah, still friends with a lot of them, man. Like and my friend Ricky, he's in one of our music videos too. It's funny, but that's been a positive role model in my life. He's been like a older brother to me. He's got me into a lot of bands, and we went to a lot of shows together growing up. I've known him since I was 7 years old, and still like, I'll be 29, and still my best friend in the entire world.
Incredible. And when you started to, like you said, go to shows and really start to experience all that, and you said that you had this strong desire to, try to play in a band or, sing for a band or whatever. Did you try to play any instruments before that? And you were like, nah, I'm terrible at this. I guess I'll just try this. Or what was the vibe there?
Yeah. My parents ended up buying me like a Walmart, like a first act guitar when I was really young. And I learned a few songs that everyone begins to learn on a guitar. Like I learned Seven Nation Army and Smoke on the Water, and just your basic riff, and Iron Man by Black Sabbath. But more past that, not really anything. I dabbled in drums a little bit too, but it was so hard for me to like sit still and learn something. I always had to keep moving and talk about this and then talk about that, or learn this and learn that, or do this and do that. Now, I was so hyperactive that I just couldn't apply myself to something like that. And, I started my first band at, I was like 16, and, I moved back in with my grandma, and my friend Dan, who I still talk to, he lived down the street from her, had a huge drum kit, and he was listening to bands like Nile and Dream Theater and all kinds of cool stuff. So he was a very, very talented drummer, still is. And I was like, man, I just found the hardest person to find in a band. Like I think from here it'll be easy. So I remember going to it was a Morbid Angel, Dark Angel, or not Morbid Angel, Dark Funeral, and I think it was Grave. They played my hometown of all places in some kind of like country like bro bar. It's like a frat bar. It's weird. And we were able to go, even under the age of 18. And I found a kid named Kenny who was like a year older than me, and he played guitar. Wasn't all that good, but we decided to hang out every week and try to start a band. And we put out like a makeshift demo and made like a paper kind of digipack with it. And we were passing it around. And then I listen, I haven't listened to it in years, but
right. Who were you trying to rip off?
And I remember going back at it and was like, I was like, man, I wasn't really that good. And then, I've been in tons of bands, from then on. And I wouldn't say that I've mastered the craft of being a vocalist and frontman until maybe like last like 2 or 3 years. And I'm still learning, as time goes on. I learn from all my peers too, like when we're on support tours or even headliners, I watch every band that's out there, and when I'm home, I watch videos of bands, performing live literally like every day. It's almost like when my dad and I would study film and watch like plays, like football plays and stuff like that. And we're like, oh, we should try this and try that. I have applied that in my life now, with music. I'll watch someone like Corpse Grinder or Frank Mullen or Carl Willits, and I'm just like, what do they do that's so special, that's grabbing people, and what do they do that I like? What specific things, and how can I put my own kind of spin on it, or how can I try but obviously fail miserably to make it, better or cooler in some kind of way?
Yeah, you're putting in the work. You are, I mean, I think it's honestly, like, not to armchair psychologist you, but I do think it's an element of, I mean, obviously how you were brought up, but then the idea that the Midwestern ethic of, like, got to put in the work, like, not everybody feels the same way about, the art that they create. Like, sometimes it's just that idea that it's this esoteric thing that, comes raining down from the sky, that it's like, oh yes, like, you're just naturally talented. And it's like, yes, talent can get you there, but you clearly have to work at it. And, like, you've been able to develop those disciplines through all those other channels. And now you're just like, oh yeah, I'm going to continue to work at it because that's what I know in order to get myself better at the thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I've, it's more so, it's more than just, even the vocal aspect of it. Like, I've conditioned, my body a lot too, to grow accustomed to doing van tours and sleeping in van seats or sleeping on someone's floor. I've prepared myself for that.
Right.
I've lost weight, like in the last year, I've lost like 60 pounds, and I've kept up with, like, strength training and stuff like that. And, cause I didn't want my knees to go out. I didn't want my feet to always hurt. It takes more than just being a good vocalist. If you want to be a showman and a frontman, you're gonna have to move around. You're gonna have to jump around. If you expect that kind of reaction out of people, you want them to reciprocate that kind of response to your music, then you gotta be that 1980s, like, fitness VHS tape, fitness guru. You got to get your Richard Simmons on and start sweating and start moving so people can move with you.
Our friends at evilgreed.net want you to know that you can look towards them for a web store solution for your band or record label, but there's a catch there. The fact that they work with a very select few bands and record labels, they honestly act like a record label themselves. And I know I say that week after week, but that's kind of the vibe they're going for. But what's cool is they are giving you a discount, 10% off your entire order by using the promo code 100words. And why is that cool? It's because you can get your very own pre-order botch t-shirt, or maybe you're like, you know what, that new Drain record that's coming out soon, they have a pre-order for that. Like I said, they really focus on the type of bands that if you're into one or two bands of a specific genre, you will find so much more at their website, evilgreed.net. And what's even cooler is they ship worldwide very quickly. And us in the States, that is why they want you to order from them, because they are seeing an uptick in people showing interest in ordering cool stuff from them. And some of the other record labels they work with Triple B, Sargent House Records. The list can go on, but trust me, if you like punk, hardcore, or metal that is of the more sort of artistic variety, as it were, you will find so much cool stuff at evilgreed.net, and use the promo code 100 words or less. Check it out. On the idea.
Hey everybody, it's your boy Michael Kaya, world famous, often talked about alleged comedian. Some of y'all know me as Mr. Whitaker from Martin. Some of you know me as Showboat from House Party 3. And yes, I have told jam crackers for everybody. And some of you don't know me at all. But you can come find out who I am on my new podcast called Michael Talks to Everybody. That's right, they gave my own show, y'all. Woo, woo, woo. Michael Talks to Everybody, where every week we'll be interviewing some of the greatest artists in the game. Also, we'll be talking to ordinary people with extraordinary ideas. It's going to be off the chain. We're going to be covering all sort of topics you ain't heard of nowhere else. We're going to be doing a lot of laughing, a lot of talking. Most importantly, we're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be off the chain. So please check us out. Everybody, I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's bananas. It's Michael Talks to Everybody. I'm talking about everybody. We got T.I., we got, Michael Jackson. It's going to be just a comeback. He's just going to be here for a minute. Everybody, we're going to be talking to him. We're going to be talking on this show. Listen to Michael Talks to Everybody on December 5th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Of when you started to incorporate all of the ideas that you had for this band. And I mean, clearly there's, the homages to horror are all peppered all over it, not only from your videos, but lyrics and stuff like that. Mm. Would you say that, I guess, horror and that sort of stuff entered your life first before music, or did they all both kind of go hand in hand?
Yeah. I was obsessed with movies for the longest time, and there was never really there's not a huge age gap between me and my parents. My parents were teenagers when they started the family. That's kind of like a pattern, and in the town that I grew up in, you found your high school sweetheart and you married her, and you stuck it out for as long as you can, and brought kids up, and I'm a byproduct of that. So, the movies that they were watching that was scaring the shit out of them, they showed to me so they can make sure I get nightmares. And, I fell in love with those movies. Early on I was absolutely terrified of them. And then, I remember being a kid, I had a sleep paralysis episode where I thought Linda Blair from The Exorcist was at the edge of my bed and that she was lifting my bed up and down.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah. And when I finally got shaken out of it, I just yelled for my parents. I was like, you're not going to believe this. But from it all, I guess just watching it so much and in a way, I guess being desensitized to it, I've grown a soft spot for, those kinds of movies, especially like psychological thrillers and I'm a nerd. So I like a lot of sci-fi horror and stuff too.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, it is interesting because I do think that because that mimics a lot of the same feelings. Like once you start to get into music, there's all the subgenres that you could get into, and the same sort of thing with, horror, science fiction. You can really start to hone not only your preferences, but then just be like, oh, I'm going to look under this rock of, like you said, psychological horror. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's this whole this whole other element that exists in there. And then you can just start to get really nerdy and obviously follow along with directors and stuff. It's the same it scratches the same sort of itch, which I think is interesting because usually people that do get into this type of music, broadly speaking, are nerds about film as well.
Yeah. That it's always been a topic that's brought up, and I have such a love for horror. I've collected a number of horror tattoos and stuff on me as well. I have I have a Cannibal Holocaust tattoo. I have
spectacular.
Yeah.
I love it. Clearly we could probably do a whole nother podcast on all of those, nerdy subgenres of Italian zombie movies and what have you. But
yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah. And so when you started to, get attention with the band, and like you said, played in the band for about 4 years now, but you guys have done a lot of touring and you've put out a lot of music in a very short period of time. When did it, for lack of a better term, feel real to you, where it's like, oh, wow, there are people that it doesn't even have to be like, oh, we played the biggest show ever, or, we got on this tour. It can be, but when did it kind of cross that gap for you for being like, wow, this thing feels like it has a different type of momentum than anything else I've ever done?
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
Sure.
We've for some reason, a lot of bands, once they get kind of that take off and, get a lot more notoriety, they have a over inflated ego. We all just stay so humble because we're all in, other various projects around Ohio, and, Cody and Sed have Volcano. Drew's in a band called Mutilatred. I'm in a band called Tomb Sentinel that's about to start touring and stuff too. And we're all very involved in the DIY scene. So we're just used to going to shows and seeing our friends. So when we go outside of that, we don't really know what to expect because we're so conditioned to seeing like one thing. And, when we do play shows and we see a ton of people and they're all going off, we're just like, maybe what I was thinking before is stupid. Like maybe,
Sure.
maybe it's cooler than what we think it is. And, we humble ourselves a lot just because I feel like, being a musician is, borderline perfectionist complex, and you beat yourself up and think you're not good enough, but you got 100 people that telling you no, you are good enough. And that's always a cool thing. And I think one of the first moments where that was becoming clear to me was when it's something so small too, which is stupid. I'm gonna sound such like
I honestly, it's like this to me. These moments are so beautiful when they are like extremely small because it's so specific. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna sound like a fangirl here, but
It's beautiful.
When Jacob Bannon shouted us out and did this like write up about us, and he put us in his like top releases for the year, and it was our demo. I was like, shh.
Like, we're done.
Shit. Yeah. Like I've impressed, a god in my world, man. Like Converge was a huge band that I fell in love with. It's still in love with everything they've ever done. Every record's different, and their collaborations that they've done with other bands is phenomenal. And it's they can never do any wrong in my book. And when he mentioned us and stuff, I was like, how? And then I'd hear things like, oh yeah, I heard about you guys from Todd Jones, and I was like, what?
Yeah, you're like, come on.
Yeah, like you're pulling my leg. And then obviously, there's been shows, getting the Cannibal Corpse offer. That was a very big moment in my life. And then doing Europe for the first time.
Sure.
Another one too is like, when we were shooting our music videos that we had released recently, we went to New York prior to that. And we were talking about doing a show in New York to have enough funds to, take care of hotels and take care of us while we're out a couple days shooting. So we played in Amityville, New York, which is basically, on the island. It's Long Island. And our manager, he knows how much of a big Suffocation fan I am. So he was like, "You're not going to believe who wants to play this show with you." Like we asked them, and they've been wanting to play with you guys for a while. And I was like, if you're going to tell me Suffocation, I'm going to tell you that you're a freaking liar. And he's like, it's Suffocation. And we got to play that show and hang out with them. And they're, I never, you don't realize being behind the barrier, being out in the crowd, like how cool one of your favorite bands can be. But, touring and we're getting to play shows supporting them. You get to find out, man. And that band just happened to be a group of some of the coolest dudes ever. They couldn't be any more cooler, honestly. And then, I got up on stage and did Funeral Inception, which that's one of my favorite songs of theirs, and got to perform it and grab a microphone. And I was just like, this is, what we say in hardcore, like real recognize real. That's it to a T.
That's beautiful. I love that. And the idea of injecting the humor that you guys do, I know, like you said, that is basically your personality. So you felt it probably would feel stupid if you didn't inject that into the band. But I know that has captured a lot of people's attention. Especially with just, how tongue in cheek you are and how much you, it's like, oh yeah, like we drop acid every single time we practice or whatever, just like all that sort of stuff. Was it kind of just an inevitability that you guys were going to, inject that sort of humor into it? Or was that something that just happened over time?
Yeah. I want to say on record, please. I'm not a big partier like at all.
Sure.
I can't stand it, and also like alcohol just it triggers me. I can't stand like drunk and drugged out people. Occasionally I'll have my fun, but
Right.
all in all, that was kind of like one of our ex members that was their personality was kind of
Got it
every day. But yeah,
okay.
As far as like being funny and injecting our personalities, that just came naturally and out of sheer boredom, and it was just like I just thought of something funny. I told everyone else in the band it. Now I think the fans would think it's funny too, and thankfully we've had a pretty good response with that, and it's just we're all in all about having a good time, because like I said, if I took this way too seriously, there would be times I would be let down, and also if I was so serious about something as bizarre and grotesque as death metal, then I wouldn't be the kind of guy that people would enjoy like having interviews or something with. I'd be on the FBI's most wanted list.
Right.
So, and I just think that, it was definitely inevitable that it was going to come out. I got to make a joke about something. I got to bust my friends' balls, when they need it.
Yeah.
And I got to poke fun, like there are things that I do like to make fun of, and there's things about me and our band that I can make fun of. And that's the best thing about us, is that even if someone else outside of us, wants to make fun of us, they're not going to do it as good as like we can. We know us. So we're our biggest target for ourselves in a way.
That's all. Yeah. That's funny. The kind of sort of adjacent to that is the idea that, once you started to play shows and have people, like you said, or like I said, pay attention to you, and, just even the notion of printing merch and doing record deals and all that sort of stuff. Have you felt, I guess, comfortable with the music industry / business side of things? Or is that something that you're just kind of like, well, I know it's necessary for us to, put one foot in front of the other, but I would rather not pay attention to it? Or where's your headspace at?
Oh man, I'm still in such a big DIY mindset that, now that there's some steam underneath us, it's cool to learn the ins and outs of being a professional band, and also the ins and outs of booking and managing bands and setting up tours, and even as something as setting up merch, like we're always like, how are we gonna expand this and keep it growing? So when we're on tour, we use a separate printing press that we do on our website because we want to help the homies. They all have small businesses. So we're like, hey, let's throw them a bone, because if we're going to be out all the time, then that means they're getting money, and then they're going to be happy. And that's a cool thing. And also, like, when we take what we learn and apply it to like other projects that we're involved in. And, I just booked a DIY tour for another band of mine. And it's interesting, man. Eventually, it's something that we've done like the past year, is any profit that we really get from merchandise and touring and stuff, we put that back into the band. We've built like a home studio that we rehearse at, and when we rehearse, we stay the night with each other, about like 2 nights out the week, and it's helped us tremendously. We even recorded our albums ourselves. And then for this record, we had Kurt Ballou mix it, which is badass, man. Huge hero of mine. But
right,
like that's the kind of like the big move for us now is how can we take like what we make of this and invest it in us, and also explore other outlets. Like I used to work at a printing press. So then I was just like, what if I what if I buy like a 7-station or 6 or 7-station screen press and like an automatic dryer, and maybe we could print our own merch, and, you know, we could take that money and put it into something else that we want to do. And, you know, just in case that this doesn't go on forever, there's other outlets where we can still have our hands in the pot in some kind of way. And because I don't want to go back to a blue collar job or a white collar, like pencil pushing job. I want to be involved with music, man, because it's literally the greatest thing in the entire world.
Sure. Two last things I wanted to hit on was the idea that when you, when you start to tour and obviously spend a lot of time on the road, there is an expectation of, or there's a perception of what it'll be like before you do it. And then clearly after you've done it for, as long as you have and experiencing different types of touring, do you, what's your relationship with it now? Is it one of those things where you like elements of it, but then other things suck? What's your take on that?
It's still all very exciting to me, man. To be honest with you, I'm more comfortable in my skin and I'm more comfortable with life when I'm on the road. And, you look at bands like I even know bands that they tour in separate tour buses because they can't stand one another.
Right.
And the guys I'm in a band with, we're all best friends. We don't go far back that much, but to me, like, they're people that I feel like I've grown up with, and be in close corners. If something's bothering somebody else, we're comfortable with enough each other. We're comfortable with each other enough and confident in our friendship enough to like intervene and be like, "Yo, what's wrong? How can I help you?" And we rely on each other. I have deep conversations with everyone in my band, and it's a huge bonding experience. Literally every tour, and it's sick, man. I don't.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm like about sometimes is when we have a 3 o'clock load in, and it's like the show doesn't start until 8. They're like, what are we supposed to do for 5 hours, And if you're playing in a big, like, busy city too, it's like, if you move your van, good luck getting that parking spot again. You know what I'm saying? So you got to take that opportunity to park in front of that venue, while you can. So it's like, sick. Now I can't leave if I wanted to. So I gotta cosplay as Dora the Explorer and bust out my map and see where's a good vegan spot to eat, or where's a cool record store I could check out. So
that's as you become an adult, there's like just those things where it's like, all right, show me your best record store, show me your best vegan spot, show me some good coffee, and then we can play a good show.
yeah, absolutely. And then and that's the thing too, is like, we don't hate it, but like, we're not too huge on like sound check, because we do know, like, as a room gets more packed, it's gonna sound different regardless, because the sound check's cool. It sounds really cool out there and in the monitors, but then now you just added like 300 like screaming people, at the end, it doesn't sound the same. And also, like, we have to put up our stuff and then take it back down, or keep it in the back as a back line. And it's just like, we're so quick at that. It's not that it's irritating. It's just that we're so quick at loading in and taking out, that it almost feels like sound checking and getting there that early is just not a necessity of ours.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's like something you have. Yeah. It's something you're like, you use that time to be like, all right, is our stuff broken? Do our amps work? Like, how much are we going to bum out the sound guy? Like, those are the necessary things, but not the actual, okay, like, we sound good. I don't know what we're going to sound like when we actually play. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. And, thankfully I've had friends, like, if I go to a city that I know people, I'll link up and they'll take me out of the venue or they'll drive me around or something, and I get to hang out until I have to put on my game face. But
Right.
when the cities that's not like that, I'm just like, man, I need something cool to look at, like
Totally.
fast,
Yeah. That's the last thing I wanted to hit on was the idea that, I mean, you, like you mentioned previously, you are existing in a lot of other bands and musical projects, like, exploring stuff with, Skag, your D-beat stuff. And obviously being able to do all of these things has that always kind of been your mode to be doing a lot of different stuff at one given moment? Or is that just because you are kind of taking these opportunities as they come because it's, fun to collaborate with friends?
That's mainly it.
Okay.
We, like me and Cody are in a couple different projects together, and it's only because like the funnest thing that me and him could ever do together is just come out with a band and out of thin air. We call it instant gratification. It's when we literally record a demo in one day, and it could be any kind of band, any kind of style, and we just go all in on it. And that's always fun, man. Like, it's cool to go home and do your homework and come back with some ideas and carve out some things, but it's also just really cool to jam, dude, and just think of stuff off the dome, and you surprise yourself with how cool it is, and that's it's always fun, man. Even when I'm not jamming or writing or working, my mind is always going. The carnival is just on full blast, like da 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 da.
Right. It doesn't stop. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always working, even when I'm not. Even when I'm asleep, I'm dreaming about playing shows or writing music.
Yeah, you're scheming. You're scheming.
Yeah.
Scheming. And actually, that made me think of one last thing I want to ask you, was the idea that because you, even though stylistically you are firmly planted within the death metal world, you've clearly toured with a lot of different bands from a lot of different genres. And it seems like, and this is of course just my outside observation, the internet hasn't blown back on you guys where it's just like, why are you touring with Terror? And why are you, touring with Acacia Strain and You're the Knife? And then all of a sudden going on tour with, Cannibal Corpse or whatever. It seems like the blowback hasn't been, harsh on you guys. Would you agree with that, or has it been, people are questioning some of those motives that you guys have to be, you shouldn't be cross-pollinating, so to speak?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm generally surprised. Like, not a lot of people have been giving us any flack about it because, there have been tour offers that we've turned down, not for like aesthetic wise. Like we hardly ever turn down anything. It's not because like we don't like that band or anything like that, or we're not excited, but yeah, I mean, we've had like one or two people like say like to us, why this band? And it's just like, oh, we want to try something different. And then they're like, all right, well, that makes sense. There's like, yeah, so, but I used to, I even saw it on my Facebook like years ago, like I put on my memories, it said, man, why is Suffocation touring with a bunch of deathcore bands? And then I was like, well, now I know why. Because it's cool, man, to branch out. And, and those bands are cool in their own way. We might not play a similar style of music, but it's kind of sick that those bands and their fans have welcomed us with open arms. And, some being the oddball band on a bill is cool. Dude, we just check this out. We just confirmed a show with Citizen of all bands. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Luckily, like Drew, our guitarist, he works with the bassist of Citizen. So we arranged that. And like we found out all kinds of stuff. Like the Newfound Glory guys like us. And we're like,
yeah. Well, I think it is there. Especially too, like as you start to recognize that a band, kind of echoing back to how we started the conversation, when bands are, real and they're showing themselves as plainly as can be, regardless of the genre, you're just going to be like, all right, like this is cool. And I respect this, and I think that's, again, why people are gravitating towards you guys, not only because you're good, but again, you're just, real humans playing this music. And yeah, that's, it's cool to be able to hear all of those random notes of like, oh, wow, I never thought, Chad Gilbert would be repping our band, but here we are.
Would have never thought that.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. Cause like, they even tell us sometimes like what they like about it. And, they like that we're as people, like not as like serious or militant. And it's like, yeah, like how it's, I last interview I did what, we kind of came up with an agreement to say it best. Like it's brutal death metal, not for everybody, but for some people. It's for the craft beer, like hipsters. It's for the hardcore kids. It's for, we try to be everybody's band with playing music that isn't suitable really for everybody at the same time.
For sure. Well, Devin, thank you very much for letting me bounce around your brain and be able to take you to these random places. But I genuinely appreciate you hanging out, man.
Yeah, likewise, Ray. It was good talking to you.
There we go. That was Devin, and thank you very much for him spending time, and my friend Tim, who does this publicity. It was a great conversation, and like I said, I cannot wait to watch Sanguisugabogg. I'll never be able to pronounce it right. But again, that's part of the charm of the band. You can just look at them and be like, oh, dude, Sanguisugabogg or whatever. And people will know what you're talking about. But they crush, and go check them out as they get out there on the road and play some shows in front of you, hopefully. Next week is a fun show, as usual, because I'm never, like I said at the top of the episode, I'm never bringing you a sleeper. And if I do, I'm just not going to publish it. That's the reality. Next week, I have Tepe Teranishi from Thrice. I have collected all the members of Thrice with the exception of Dustin, and no particular reason. I just have neglected to reach out to him to be like, yo, let's podcast. These are gentlemen I've known for 20 plus years, and it's very fun for me to have these discussions with them because I find out more things about them when I ask them these really pointed questions. But Tepe has been a person who I care about greatly and was excited to have him on the podcast. So that's what we do next week. And like I mentioned, go to ldbfestival.com. You can find some tickets. And I look forward to those of you that are going to that fest, and give me a high five or just hang out, whatever you want to do. I'm not your boss. You get it. Anyways, until then, please be safe, everybody.
Squirrel Friends, the official RuPaul's Drag Race podcast, is taking you behind the scenes of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 15 on MTV with me, Lonnie Love, and my co-host, Alec Mapa.
We'll recap the latest episode, and we'll even be joined by some of your favorite queens along the way.
Watch Season 15 of RuPaul's Drag Race every Friday on MTV. Then join us on the podcast right after the show to recap the episode and more.
Listen to Squirrel Friends, the official RuPaul's Drag Race podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Back in 1999, a young woman from South Carolina vanished. 7 years passed. She was presumed dead. Then, a tip came in.
He said, I think I found your girl, and she's alive. She's in New York. And I said, really?
The detective on the case, he didn't buy it. He came to believe that he was dealing with an imposter. Who was this woman, really? Listen to Deep Cover on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey y'all, it's Caroline Hobby, host of Get Real with Caroline Hobby, interviewing the most fascinating people in Nashville and beyond. I talk to artists, I talk to the wives of artists, I talk to women entrepreneurs who have created businesses, who are moms, who juggle a million hats and do it all. Each episode will leave you inspired, feeling like you can accomplish your own dream and calling. Listen to new episodes of Get Real with Caroline Hobby every Monday on the Nashville Podcast Network, available on iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.